Hello and welcome back to Devil's Gambit. We will be continuing where we left off, which, if you recall, is basically at the end of the second chapter, I believe, in which Rain finally tells Hector who he really is, which is basically Cadgan. And, well, that's not entirely clear as to if Rain is Cadgan, he just looks different, or if Cadgan is Cadgan, but he just doesn't have anything that makes a Cadgan. Um, that was not explained yet. Hector understandably was like, what the fuck? And basically did not take it very well. He more or less told Rain to disappear, to leave him alone, and as a result, he was basically left alone with what's his name? The Dragon Inquisitor. What's his name? I forget. But yeah, you know who I mean. He is the avatar of the gluttonous Dark God. But yeah. Something also happened where when Cadgan and Rain were snooping around the memories of the Inquisitor, no, it wasn't that. It was afterwards where they were snooping around the mansion and they were attacked by some sort of ghosts or something like that, which awoke something very strong within Rain, which Cadgan said, you know what? I'm gonna take these into myself because if I let you deal with them, then something bad's gonna happen. So yeah, I'm going to disappear for a little while you basically are going to have to deal with things yourself from now on. And Rain basically understandably was like, what do I do now? So that's why he ended up going to Hector, and unfortunately Hector was like, yeah, I don't want you right now because you just told me that you are my friend Cadgan, and you are sharing the body with my actual friend Cadgan, the one that looks like he's supposed to look like. So yeah, it's basically a big mess. But yeah, Hector is at the mercy of the dragon right now in the Eye Valley, and I think that they're gonna end up doing something really bad. But yeah, basically that was the end of the second chapter, and now we're on to the third one. I wonder how many chapters the story's gonna have. Anywho, so yeah, without further ado, let us continue Devil's Gambit. From the firmament thou descendest, O ever-flowing wellspring, future-seeing eye. The wolves of Ranai sing and howl to thee, for our people that's thou chosen. Take root, make my flesh thine soil. With our seed shall we spread thy sapling. By our womb shall thy vision grow. Our limbs are thy branches, our spines their trunk, robust and unyielding from thy gift. Take us, O eye, and grant us vision twofold. Bless our seed and womb with children twice. With the strength of thy branches shall we fight. With the eternity of thy root shall we stand. With thy wellspring gift shall we multiply. The moon, thy minor sibling, shineth from thee alone. Nature shall twist and bend, O eye, for thy future ever bright. Act 3, Chapter 1, Rain. I sink and sink. The murky darkness around me is as old as my first memory, buried somewhere within the earth, deeper than the roots reach, deeper than the ice cradle. I cannot find my fingers, nor my face or torso or legs. Wherever I move, all I feel is a sensation that is more like sand than water. And yet, it waits for me. At the bottom of the ocean, a glimmer waits. It's not the light of the sun, nor is it a lighthouse beacon. It most likely won't guide me closer to the surface at all. Instead, I reckon that it'll take me into some other depth, and from there, I'll keep going down and down, right to the center of the earth. Into hell, a line would say, and they'd probably be right. But even now, I can't find any piece of myself. I must remember, this hell is one that I must reclaim. Once I gave it to Rain so that he'd endure its merciless flames in my place. Now, however, I move whatever my body is towards that accursed light. It blinds me, and for the first time in what feels like ages, I feel my heart hammering inside my chest, blood flowing through my veins and arteries, every hair of my body standing on end. I'm alive. I'm going to die. That's the one certainty ripping through my body as my heart thrashes inside my chest. My lungs refuse to hold air. As soon as I breathe it in, the panic, the horror, all that is happening around me pushes the air out. I can't think, I can't plan. My claws dig onto the wall that I've been pushed against, leaving searing, bloody gashes. I search for a door that's not there. I try to dig through the surface, but I'm going to die. I am Cadgan. This is Cadgan. This is me. It's a night in the Duke's mansion, in a room that would go on to haunt my dreams. With teary eyes and a mouth open in silent scream, I look at them. They shamble towards me, eyes upon eyes settle on my shaking figure. Purple tears seep from their eyes. Branches grow from everything they touch, from the melting flesh they leave behind, sprouting their leaves marked by the dark god's name. From beneath their fangs, more fingers grow, and more beneath those, and more until their hands blossom into bouquets. Little by little, it all comes back to me. Yes, I had been the first one to be abducted, and then came the other subjects, all wolves of different shapes and ages. We were separated across 2 rooms, supervised by the guards at all times. The only one allowed to go in and out were the servants, who would bring us food, and the doctors who would inspect us while taking notes. Then, we were exposed to it. Leopoldino brought it from the valley, a sample of the eye's essence. His doctors entered the room with syringes loaded with that purple essence. Although the other wolves were afraid, they cooperated. But me? I knew the danger. I knew what that was. They had to gag me so that I'd stop screaming, and had to bring the guards to help hold me still. And I remember, even as the memory feels fake, and like it doesn't belong to me, as I lined the syringe with my arm, I knew my time had come. I was going to die. I would never see again the light of the day, or feel the sun's warmth on my fur, or pick berries with Mom, nor would I hear Dad's lessons about working silver. Would they ever find me here? Would they ever know what happened? Before I made my peace, before I was able to breathe free one last time, they injected it. A sob, a whimper escaped from my lips, but it was not mine. It was not mine. His heart quieted down, and so did his lungs, and as each limb, layer, and thought lost its color, the first thing to dissipate was fear, and the last was anger, hate, spite. His tears dried, and his mouth opened to wring out his voice one last time. A life of fear. He breathed out, until your last breath. And I breathed in. Everything felt dull for a moment, for a minute. And then it all came back to me. Anger first, fear last. Once more my heart was beating as if ready to explode. Then, only a few minutes later, the other test subjects began moaning. First came the pain, then the horror as their bodies transformed. The doctors ran as soon as they began spouting their extra fingers and eyes and heads and mouths. Then the moaning and cries ceased. A light was reflected in those countless eyes. That shine was as old as it was knowing, like distant, barely visible stars in the darkest sky. A guard rushed in as I began undoing my bindings. Between 2 of them, they knocked him over and kissed him with their countless mouths, covering his face in their sap. By the time that they got up, there was no way to tell the difference between the lion's head, his mouth, and the floor. All of it had been melted in a way that I couldn't quite grasp, made into more soil for the eyes' saplings to sprout from. After recycling the guard, their eyes turned to me, and their many hands examined me for injuries from my bindings. From their mouths came a hum, almost a lullaby. But I couldn't fight my own fear. I backed up against the wall in a panic, but not even that changed the gentleness that they directed at me. They kept crying, moaning, but it was almost as if the pain was gone. The other wolves' bodies kept suffering, but the concept of pain had been erased from their minds, replaced with knowing light. One of them stepped forward, and with clarity worthy of a demon of Ranai, gathered 2 drops of the cursed sap on 2 of its dozens of fingers, and ever so slightly pressed them against my forehead. As it moved away, I knew on my forehead was the eye's true name, the 2 uneven circles that symbolize the triumph of new life sprouting from the old. They crowned me, for the knowledge that had erased their pain let them realize what it would take me years to understand. I had become a shaman. I had been reborn as their god's avatar. Cadgan was no more. I was the devil of Ranhai. My next memory is waking up somewhere dark. The floor was cold, hard stone. I couldn't see the walls, but after feeling my way around the room in search of the door, I realized that it was even smaller than the hideout at the church. And when I finally found the door, it was locked, and no amount of hitting it or throwing myself against it could change that. Panic overcame me. I called for help, but nobody answered. Once my voice became coarse and my shoulders and arms were sore from hitting the door, I fell to my knees. There, alone with the fresh memory of the fate that the other wolves suffered, I cried. I was scared that I would succumb to the same horror at any moment. I missed my mom and dad. I missed teacher. I missed my friends. Why would nobody help? It was the same at the church. When the lions took me away, night had already fallen, but there was still wolves out. They saw the guards dragging me. No matter how much I kicked, screamed, and called their names, all they did was watch with wide eyes. They looked as we passed them by on the street, or through the windows, and then they'd avert their gaze and go on with their night as if nothing had happened. Oddly enough, it was that image that helped me finally stifle my sobs. Nobody helped me back then, when we were in the middle of town. Who would come to save me now that I was locked up in some corner of the Duke's mansion? Right, nobody. But it wasn't resignation that overcame me. It was a mixture of so many other emotions: hatred at those who had taken me and my family away, resentment against the villagers that stood by as it happened, rage fueling it all. My claws dug into my knees with no regard for the pain or the drops of blood that I couldn't see. Hours passed. I fell asleep, woke up, kept waiting, still fearful, still enraged, but hungry and unable to move. A thought arose then. If I was going to become one of those monsters and die, then at least I take one of my captors with me. I was small, but I still had my claws. When the door opened, if the Duke was on the other side, I'd dig my claws into his eye sockets, blind that accursed wretch so that he wouldn't be able to enjoy the sight of his belongings. Maybe I could bite his neck, rip his throat out. If it was one of those guards, I could at least maim a hand, take something away from him so that he wouldn't ever forget me. I was going to die. I knew that. It terrified me, but I wouldn't go down without a fight. However, a part of me was afraid. What if there was a chance that I could make it out alive? What if there was still time to find Mom and Dad? They weren't among the wolves that arrived after me. If anything, it was weird that they weren't in the mansion when I had been brought in. That meant that they must have moved somewhere else, or perhaps that they had escaped. Yes, I needed to survive. I hadn't turned yet, so there was a chance that it wouldn't happen. I didn't know how or why, but whatever they were trying to do to me must have failed. That was my glimmer of hope. If only I could survive for long enough, then Mom, Dad, and teacher would come for me, and everything would go back to normal. I would feel the sunlight on my fur again, Mom would take me out to pick berries around the shaman tree. Dad would teach me new sigils to carve on silver. Hope was not lost. I held onto that thought, so comforting it was, but with it came a slithering of cold sweat down my spine. Because hope brought with it other emotions: doubt, uncertainty, anxiety. What did the Duke want with the experiment? What would I have to do to remain alive here? Just what was going on? Before I knew it, before I could understand what was going on, all these questions and 100 more mixed into one thing: fear. Cold sweat, galloping heart, breathless pain, and that brought back the visions of that night, and the moment the syringe injected that thing inside of me. Again, I wanted to fight, but I knew that would be my end. Maybe I could run away if I played my cards right. But where to? Shouldn't I wait for Mom and Dad? But what if they... I felt like I was dying again. God, I wanted to die, if only because it would end this suffering. Please, Mom, Dad, teacher. Please, anyone, help me. I can't go on like this. I curled up, claws sinking to my own flesh, as the pressure inside my chest grew into a yellow fear, anger, grief, loneliness, and every kind of pain. My mouth opened into a silent howl, and I wished for someone to take this away, this grief, this fear, the fury telling me to kill and be killed. It was at that precise moment that I felt it for the first time. I turned around with a gasp. For just an instant, I felt like something was hovering close to my head, like somebody breathing down my neck, but not quite. Naturally, it was only me in the cell. Yes, only me. But something was changing. The darkness around me seemed to shift, and focusing my attention on it distracted me from the storm of emotions inside of me. My heartbeat slowed down and I regained control of my breathing. I was able to think again, and every second was no longer agony. I don't know how long it was until the footsteps came. Then the door unlocked, and finally light was allowed inside. It came from the dim torches hanging from the dungeon's corridor, but it still felt like a blessing after so long. A guard stepped in, and still keeping his distance, he looked at me from head to toe as I sat on the floor. I was surprised at how calm I felt then. I felt like I'd spent hours arguing with myself in the dark about whether I'd tear out the eyes of the first person that came through that door or not. But now that the moment had arrived, it was as if all that rage had never been there. It's as if it had been shoved away somewhere that it could no longer reach me. After confirming that I had the right amount of limbs, fingers, and eyes, and everything else, the guard grabbed me by the arm and forced me to my feet. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw somebody that should not have been there. At first, I thought perhaps that there had been a mirror in the room that I hadn't noticed in the darkness. Perhaps he just looked like me. But no, there was no such thing. Why would there be a mirror in a dungeon? And how could I see him clearly in the dim light? It was as if he was untouched by the pitch black around him, around us. That other person glared past me at the line as he dragged me away. But he didn't abandon my vision. No, he stayed there, sometimes right in front of me, sometimes out of the corner of my eye. The guard didn't notice him. Nobody noticed him. I thought that I had gone mad. But the moment that I truly observed him, I knew that I was wrong. He'd been there with me all along when they touched my forehead and I trembled. That was the last that I saw the man with my eyes before I was in the dark place. But when I opened my eyes, I saw them. I hugged my legs, but there was no space. His first two eyes were up against mine, and I saw my reflection in red. I saw my hands within my hands, and my trees growing out of my fingers, the nuts growing from the branches. She had my fur and helped me put them in a basket. Her hand was warm in mine, but when I woke up and went looking for her, she was not there, nobody, and I was looking in the place. Come back, they let the dark god in on us, and the others began to grow, but I couldn't join them. I want to find her hand again, and also him to whom my eyes belong. I ran up to the people watching me, and look, I shook them, and they kept staring. Any more, nor the sticks with knives at the tip, nor the beasts or the birds sang, nor the smell of iron when they fell, so that I would make him fall instead. I would make him fall, 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 make him fall. I am Cadgan, and I was born among screams. My father's name is engraved between my eyes. I am the branch of the tree that I have grown. The warmth is mine, the blue silver is mine. Their laughter back then, the moments that I spent watching the symbols form while sitting on his lap are mine. They have been abandoned in the dark, but they are lost. They will never come again, but I found them, and I made them mine, and it will be so until my sleep lasts forever. For the longest time, I thought Rain had been born in the darkness of that dungeon cell, in that loneliness. Without realizing it, I had begun giving him everything that I thought I was better off without. My resentment against the townspeople, my anger, the fear for my life, and the reality of our parents' death. And with that last one, he was also obtained part of my heart, and so he began taking shape. Of course, one day long after this, once I was back in Renai, it suddenly dawned on me. I was born the moment the Dark God's essence began running through the original Cadgan's blood, so it only made sense Rain was already with me back then. I don't know why it is that newborns cry upon taking their first breath. Is it the cold? Are they hungry? Are they lonely? Well, I can say for certain that for me and Rain, the very first thing that we felt was fear. A fear that I made him carry alone. But back then, I hadn't the faintest idea that this was happening. Looking at him was as if trying to stare at the bottom of a murky but shallow pond, or through some sort of membrane. His face, his eyes, his body, they were all mine, but distorted somehow, and he didn't speak. He moved his lips, as if slowly imitating the act of whispering, but no sound whatsoever came out. Whenever the servants brought me food, he just watched with anger in his eyes. And then the cyclical lethargy started. The first time that it happened, I was surprised to wake up on the floor and to find him in my bed. This was also the first time that I could see him clearly, without the membrane in the way. Curious, I approached him, and after a few moments, I tried touching his shoulder, only for my hand to go through him. I didn't cry and I didn't scream, because I had already rid myself from fear. All that was left already was cold curiosity as I inspected my own hand. He wasn't the only abnormality here. Something had happened to me. Still, with nothing to do as a ghost, and him not being able to talk, I simply waited. A servant came in eventually and then proceeded to panic when she found my body with its eyes open but completely unresponsive. After shaking him to no avail, she panicked and ran out of the room calling for help. It didn't matter. Leopoldino and his doctors had no way to know what was wrong with him. I didn't know either, but now that I'm back here, that I took back part of what I once gave away, I can feel it. The words flash like blinding lights for an instant, burning themselves into my eyes. They appear as random shapes at first, but little by little they gain some semblance of cohesion. And it is just a semblance. As he mimicked the act of speech, his lips formed words without a pattern or order. Smile, bones, color, silver, eyes, symbol, trees, birds, cheek, nuts, sleep. It was this in random, endless repetition. He was paralyzed, stuck between rage and fear. However, as soon as the Duke entered the room, with his sweaty forehead and his last doctor in tow, the balance was broken. It didn't scare me to see Rain scream, jump off the bed blind with rage, and immediately try to claw out the doctor's eyes. I was just puzzled at what was happening. Right now, there'd be nothing left that I'd remake them into splatters, tear the flesh with the pincers that are my fangs. Eventually the guards came to their aid, and after restraining him, the doctor applied a sedative. The next time our eyes opened, it was me back in control. I was famished, but as a result of what he had done, I was not to receive food until the next day. It was then that my biggest worry came to pass. When we woke up the next day, he was in control again, but something had changed. He was looking at me. His lips moved and ever so slightly, words came out. The other one, the one that breathes. We share a face, the one above the surface. I quickly realized that he was talking about me. If he could also see me, if he could acknowledge me, then maybe I could tell him to eat. Are... aren't you hungry? Hungry? Yes. You've gone too long without food. You need to eat. Do you understand? The rumblings in his stomach answered for him. He blinked slowly, looking down as if considering the situation. Then he got up from the bed. I smiled at seeing him move, but that quickly turned to worry when I saw him stare off the window. What are you doing? Wordlessly, he opened the window, clumsily climbed the frame, and then tilted our body forward, letting himself fall from the second floor like a doll. Everything spun around and went blank. There was no pain. It was almost as if I was suddenly fallen asleep, a ringing slowly filling my ears followed by a pained hiss. By the time both subside, the world came back into focus. When he stepped into the forest, something immediately felt different. I'd known Renai's forest as a treacherous thing all my life. There always had been malice behind the way roots and rocks would show up where there weren't any before, or how the branches of the trees would try to hit you in the eyes if you weren't careful. Or in the subtle ways a path would bend from one day to the next, as if in an attempt to make you lost before you realize it. However, none of that was happening now. If anything, it was almost as if the trees' countless fingers were bowing to us. The path ahead of us was clear and free of obstacles. He looked up, almost as if in acknowledgement, as we made our way to the river. Where are we going? Bones. Bones? Bones. Colorful bones. The sweet shop, maybe? But that meant making our way to town. Hey, wait. To my surprise, he did stop. I clicked my tongue, considering what we were doing, if it even was a good idea. The Duke might try to find us. I had no clue why he kidnapped us, but I had a feeling that he tried taking us back if we escaped. We could try hiding in town, but then what? How long would we need to wait for the Duke to lose interest in us? It didn't seem feasible, but maybe it was worth a try. What did we have to lose? Even I wanted to go home. It must have been painful for him, for Rain, to go back to a place that he knew would be empty, and yet he still preferred it to staying another day in the Duke's mansion. But I was too naive to think so. It was then that we felt a hand on our shoulder. Before either of us could react, we got turned around and met with a familiar face. Irnan. His mouth was hanging open, and his shoulders were rising up and falling down at rhythms of his breathing. He touched our face, as if to confirm every feature was still in place, still as he remembered it. Cadgan. Snowball. It really is you. I've been staking out the mansion for days, but I couldn't find a sign of you. Then I heard a noise and what I thought was your voice. How I wished that I was the one in control then. He stared at Irnan, then smiled and finally hugged him. And while Irnan returned the hug, he was still on high alert, looking over his shoulder towards where we came. Let's get out of here. I don't know how you escaped, but somebody else might have heard. He pulled us by the hand, and just for a moment we saw the orange and the lion's mane behind a nearby tree. We couldn't see his eyes because they were covered in the helm all the Duke's guards wore. He's here. Shit, come on. Come where? Running now was useless. Even if we escaped, there was no place to hide for long, to avoid the Duke's capture forever. It'd only make everything worse for us, and for Irnan. It'd be better if Teacher went off by himself. I felt a pang then, too dull to call pain, too tiny to call it an itch. And watching them run, cut through the trees, take long steps across the river, never looking back to their pursuers, I began wondering. This desperation, this need to be free, to return home, consequences be damned. Why was I not feeling it? He was, so why not me? How could I watch the situation and consider that? Perhaps simply walking back to the mansion was the better option? Those were my thoughts, but deep down, I must have realized that I wanted someone to save me, to take me away from that mutated wolves, From the dark cell, all the doctors. And now, watching Rain run once again, I can feel it. A heart thundering. The happiness that someone, anyone had come for him. The hope of escaping even against all odds. But if fate intended to be so kind to us, we'd never have found ourselves in that situation to begin with. A guard approached us from our flank and tackled Irnan. We were flung into the grass. The guard tried to restrain Irnan while he was down, but the priest immediately reached for his dagger and swung it at the lion's neck, who barely intercepted it in a centimeter away from his mane. "Come, quick!" I didn't know what was happening anymore, but the other me didn't waste any time jumping to Irnan's defense. He lunged at the lion, kicking him in the shin, banging against his helmet, trying to claw out the eyes underneath. The lion hissed, unable to let go of the dagger that was now digging into his mane, not even to push us away. But before he could dig our claws into his eyes, a pair of large hands grabbed us from behind and pulled us away. Another one showed up to help restrain Irnan. He was forced to his knees with his hands behind his back. "Sir, we got them." From the direction of the mansion, a group of 3 lions were approaching, 2 guards and a slender and tall noble almost hiding behind them. The Duke. His eyes jumped from place to place, searching for us, and upon seeing us, restrained by one of his men, he shook his head with a disappointed expression. "To think you'd go so far as running away. First you reject my hospitality, and now this." He gestured towards Irnan with disgust. "These mutts are all so ungrateful. To think that they have the chance to make history, and yet..." "Your Grace, what shall we do?" "The pup should lose a foot or 2 over this." "Touch him, and I'll fucking kill you, you..." We flinch as one of the guards silences Irnan with a hit from the blunt end of his spear. It felt as if time was slowing down. Even though I wasn't in control, I became aware of every sensation running through our body in that instant. The cold afternoon breeze brushing our fur, the blood pumping through our veins, the life force traveling through our nerves. An impulse, aggression breaking through the fear, our gaze wandered off to Irnan's dagger now lying on the grass a few meters away from him. But he is a precious research subject. I'd rather have it whole. Regardless, it must learn its lesson. This one shall make a fine specimen. The Duke glanced at us before stepping towards Irnan, who was still reeling, wrapping his fingers around the grip of his sword. The other me watched, paralyzed and with eyes wide open, as the Duke pulled out his blade. Meanwhile, I stood back in horror, bodiless and helpless, as it all dawned on me. This was our fault. The Duke would kill Irnan to get to us. God, even if we had made it to town, this same thing would have happened. He'd kill anyone that tries to help us. Whatever the Duke did to us and the other wolves, we were too valuable to harm. At that moment, the other me blinked and his ears twitched, then aimed his gaze at Irnan's knife. At some point, the grip of our arm had weakened. Perhaps the guard became careless for the brief moment that he stood fighting, or was too entranced by the sick show the Duke intended to put up. In that split second, our arm slipped free from the lion's grasp. He ran forward and threw himself to the ground. It went dark for a moment. We couldn't have remained slouched in the grass for more than a second, yet it felt like hours. A cold edge met our neck as he raised his head, with eyes full of hatred, all of it pointed at the Duke. Put that down. Snowball. His grip on the dagger was firm as he pressed it against our skin, ever so gently. Leopoldino quickly forgot all about Irnan, too worried about losing his potential experiment. Let him go. A guard tried to approach us, thinking that this was a bluff, that he wouldn't go through with it. But I knew that if he took one more step, that'd be it for us. We'd bleed out from a sliced throat, and there'd be nothing that they could do to stop it. Leopoldino must have realized it. He saw our eyes, how steady was our hand. He glimpsed something worthy of fear. He screamed at the guard. That was the first time Rain tasted another's horror. Stop! You've already fucked up enough. Step back now. Do you really value this mutt's life so much?" He didn't answer, the Duke's question instead burning him with hatred. He wanted to save Irnan, yes, but a part of him was capable of ending our lives if it meant striking back at Leopoldino for everything that he'd done. It was difficult for me at the time to understand why Rain's gaze would make the Duke flinch every once in a while. However, even back then, he knew why. He saw the Duke for the sad man that he was. Leopoldino couldn't comprehend that a child that he'd kidnapped and made a part of his experiment would feel anything but gratitude towards him. He thought that he'd made us a part of a greater purpose, that even if he failed, that it was courageous, honorable even, to be his sacrificial pawn. He couldn't stand one with power such as himself being treated with anything but adoration. So the raw hatred in our eyes made him flinch. It left him confused. Something about our gaze made it clear to Leopoldino that there was no room for negotiation. Before him, before someone who was not afraid of death, he was powerless. The lion's eyes were open wide and the inside of his ears red. His fingers stroked the handle of a sword with temptation. But in the end, he bit down his frustration, putting on a facade of calm. "Very well. Its life means nothing to me, but you still have value. Consider yourself lucky, mutt." "Cadgan. God damn." Irnan said no more, but his eyes carried a promise that he would return for us, that help would come. We were not alone. "Go, before I change my mind." After another second of holding our gaze, Irnan got up and ran. Leopoldino stepped forward, one hand outstretched. "Give me that, now." Naturally, the coward didn't step close enough to take it. He kept his distance, waiting for the other me to drop it. What followed, however, was another impulse, an irrational, nonsensical impulse. His grip on the dagger tightened, as if saying, wouldn't it be great to take away his experiment anyway? But before he had the chance to commit the deed, he began coughing, no, choking. I didn't know how, but I did realize that it was me doing it. The moment that I understood that he was about to slit our throat, as if grabbing him and pulling him underwater, my desire to stop him deprived him of air. The dagger fell, followed by our body as he grasped our neck, trying to pull away that invisible force strangling him. The Duke was shocked, but quickly shouted orders for the guards to take us back to the mansion and to call the remaining doctor. It wasn't long before the doctor left too. Leopoldino had assembled a sizable team to investigate the effects of the eye's essence on sentient beings. But when their mutated victims not only took a guard's life, but one of the scientists as well, nearly all of them pulled away, taking with them a large sum of hush money. At least that's what I gathered from the occasional moaning and complaining coming from his study. The other me made a habit of prowling in the mansion's hallways, exploring every nook and cranny, trying to always stay out of sight. Every few days, he'd camp outside the study, watching, listening. I had no clue what he was trying to accomplish. However, one day we saw Leopoldino leaving his study, and we noticed him staring at the portrait by its entrance. I didn't think much of it, but after he went away, the other me went and began getting his hands all over it. I was worried that he'd scratch it and get us in trouble, but then I realized that he was investigating it. The portrait was stuck in place, but there was just enough space between the wall and the frame to stick your finger between them. After inspecting the sides, he jumped to feel around the top of the frame. There was a click, and the portrait came off, or rather, the secret passage opened. After that, his behavior changed. Out of nowhere, he began playing petty pranks on the servants. When nobody was watching, he'd approach one of the countless display shelves in the mansion and mess with the valuables inside. Gold statues, necklaces, jewels, he'd take them and put them in the wrong place, or just leave them on the floor. Leopoldino, much like Manuel many years later, liked displaying his obscene wealth, so much in fact that not even him or the servants could remember every little artifact in the mansion. The other me would wait and see which things were often forgotten, what the servants didn't notice was missing or displaced, and then he'd take it to stash it in the secret passage. The first time that we entered it with the necklace, I noticed that these weren't random pranks. He was testing the limits, setting the stage to steal from the Duke and get away with it. A few days before he could barely talk, and his idea of getting food involved dropping us from the second floor window. Him coming up with this scheme meant that he was very quickly changing into what I wasn't sure, and that disturbed me at the time. But now I knew that I had a way to stop him, if it was ever necessary, and I still had control of the body half of the time. During that period, I'd simply sit on our bed. I didn't have anything to do except wait for my eventual release, after all. That day, I was on the bed hugging my knees. The other me was sitting across of me, legs crossed in silence. It was curious to look at myself like that. At times, I'd forgotten whether I was in control of the body or not, and I'd pinch myself to confirm. At that point, I had accepted that the eye's essence was causing this, but I didn't understand what was happening to me, how much I wished that I could have spoken to Irnan. He would have explained it to me. Then again, I wouldn't have had the courage to grab the knife and hold it to my throat, so the other me being in control might have been for the best. Why did I feel so strange? I hadn't thought about it until then, but all of a sudden, starting the moment that I first saw him in that cell, I had stopped crying. I didn't miss Mom and Dad anymore. I no longer had any doubt that they were alive. Perhaps a part of me was so relaxed because I was expecting them to show up and rescue me at any moment. But it wasn't an excited or even restless kind of waiting. No, it was patient, cold. My own body felt like a stranger, as if everything was happening around me rather than to me. Regardless, without anything to do but sit around in my room, the weight was growing dull. Watching the other me's pillage of the mansion did give me the idea of secretly borrowing books at night. Even if Mom and Dad didn't show up, I figured that we'd be out of there sooner rather than later. Without a single scientist willing to help him, whatever project the Duke wanted for me was bound to be abandoned. Or so I thought. I couldn't imagine what he'd do next, nor where the fateful day would lead us. Me. It's me. Standing in the doorway is me, with the Tin Man. But he's different because he breathes. Where I come from, there is no breathing, only dark and warm to fill your lungs. His face is mine. The terror in his eyes is mine. The streaks under his eyes are mine. But then I did not see them anymore. Who gave them to me? Was it me? Did I take it, or did he give it to me? I don't know if he's me. His face is all that is left. Hunger. Where I come from, there is no hunger. Love fills the stomach. Home is where love is. Her smile is lost. He will never shape the silver again, but home is still there. Even if I am alone, even if I am with a me who's not me. Is he Cadgan? I am Cadgan. I took the knife. That is what Cadgan would do. Cadgan is the name that they would call me when we were collecting the berries, when we laugh at the table. So is it mine? Or when I took the streaks, did I lose something, or did he keep the name? Cadgan. Rain. Rain. It sounds different. It sounds shorter. Is he Rain, or is it me? Which one is shorter? Which one is missing the most? Is it him, or is it me? But our freedom didn't arrive. It wouldn't do so for 2 more years, because Leopoldino found a replacement. It was the other me that saw them arrive, a man and a boy of some species that we had never encountered before, Iogen and Hector. From the way Iogen carried himself, it wasn't difficult to intuit what he was there for. But Hector, the way that he skittishly looked around, how just looking at the guard welcoming them had him at the verge of tears, how he rocked his body back and forth as he sat on the steps of the entrance hall. I had no idea what he was doing here. He was related to the new doctor, obviously, but was he supposed to be an apprentice? It didn't seem like he wanted to be there, much less like he was in any condition to learn. Back then, the memory of watching our biological father in his workshop had already become blurry and lost all color, and yet I still felt a pang of pride for sharing that with him. I saw none of that in Hector. The other me was curious. I suspected he had wanted to follow Leopoldino and Ilgen, but when Hector sat on the stairs, he settled for observing him instead, undetected from a distance. In truth, I was surprised to see them talk. The other me never spoke to Leopoldino. He acted cold towards the servants. He outright ignored the guards. So, him warming to Hector must have been the first time that he actually conversed with someone else. "Oh, you're just like Teresa, trying to scare me." Hearing that name, I felt a pang that could be described as hope. It was faint and momentary. He knows her? What did that mean? Did she perhaps send us a message? Could they be working together? Of course, one look at the Badger's face was enough to tell that he knew nothing. But short-lived as that hope had been, Rain must have felt it much more strongly. Teresa? Are you guys friends? That was it. The other me's mood immediately soured, and he went back to trying to scare Hector. Then Hector misspoke, followed him, and got himself beat up. I thought that that'd be the last time that he tried approaching us. I don't know which of us was more surprised when he showed up again with nuts as a bribe, but it worked. It was bizarre to see the other me, who, up until now, I had assumed to be some kind of valley entity or hallucination, talk and play. Whenever he'd be in control from the moment onwards, he'd go looking for Hector. I watched them go out into the forest and climb trees in search of nuts and fruits. I watched them when they'd play by the river. Hector would throw stones into its surface trying to make them skip, but the water never was still enough. And, at times, the other me would hug his legs and begin crying. He kept saying that he missed his mom and dad. Watching him just be a kid. Watching him miss what was supposed to be my family. I won't say that it made me afraid or sad, because it didn't. But then more than ever, I felt pure, unfiltered discomfort at the sight of my own body. It was as if there was a layer of something thick and slimy between my flesh and my skin. It wasn't a feeling, but a certainty that I was missing a piece of my heart. I am Cadgan. I throw a pebble at the Duke's window because I have to come to realize that the giant of glass and stone is part of his body. I make trinkets disappear because I've come to realize that I can make better use of what he does not need. I play with Hector, but I don't know why. In the beginning, everything was a calm, dark pond. I rested in its depths, not noticing the world around me. Then I felt it, a cry, and I saw him with my face glancing from the place where people breathe. He called for me. Before I ever had a will of my own, I was invited to rise. First, he cast out his tears. Second, his shivers. Third, the moment where he clenched his teeth or fists. I did not realize that I took them, but I did, and they brought me to the surface. Ever since, I also breathe, sometimes, but I can tell that this is not where I belong. Or is it? Because I am Cadgan, and I have many memories from here. Why did I wake up in the pond? For what purpose was I brought up? I think that it has to do with the one with my face, but he doesn't speak to me often. It looks to me like he has no clue himself anyway. He also gave me a third eye, one that most people have, but no one can see. Thanks to that, I know that we see things differently, not only because what I have he does not, but because I can tell from his expression how he never reacts but instead ponders and begins playing with little pieces to see how they react to what he says next before he says it. I don't understand how he moves the pieces around, but they show the way to the future that we want. There is some kind of magic in them. His pieces told me to put the dagger to my neck to save the priest, told me how to figure out which shinies were safe to take, where to hide them, and why. Slowly I began understanding what he was doing. At first I was broken off, splintered, but when ideas began appearing and between them connections, understanding, I grew into a full branch. Does that mean that I came after Cadgan after all? Is he the real one? Then maybe I'm Rain, but I can't accept it because today I am playing with Hector in the river. I like Hector. He's neither a wolf nor a lion. When I'm with him, we make new lines. When I'm with him, the clenching of the teeth and fists gain meaning beyond their reaction. I can see fragments of what was there before. I see Teresa and Cadgan planting fake snakes, summer afternoons during which me and Mom watched Dad run faster than the other wolves, throw things farther, and fight them until one of them was lying on the ground. It all ended up being a bittersweet fruit. I am made of grief, fear, and rage, and remembering too much makes the tears sing. It hurts too much, so I can only taste memories in small bits. So my favorite part still was doing new things with Hector. But today, as each stone Hector throws into the river sinks, tears wash over me. I'm crying, leaning against a tree. Hector sees me and comes running at me. Cadgan? What's wrong? I don't know. The words come out of my mouth on their own. Mom, where are you? Mom. Hector looks sad, holding his hands close to his chest. I can't stop crying. I'm so alone. Where is the priest? He said that he'd come back. He'd take me back. I want to go back now. The incoming storm is interrupted by Hector sitting down next to me. He makes no other attempt at approaching me, so he seeks for a memory, or perhaps for words, on the stones lining the riverbed. My vision is blurry with tears, but his expression is clear. It always is. Then, apparently having given up, he just hugs me. I hug back. The tears spill onto his neck and shoulder. He was never that good with words, but didn't matter most of the time because his expression said everything. The waves do recede. The sand is left dark in their wake, stained by tears. But as the sun dries the shore, I can stifle my sobs, until the sunlight evaporates the sadness. Your mom? How was she? Hector's words are shy. I wish they weren't so that I could hear them clearly. Why do you care? I never had a mom. Why not? Dad says that she died giving birth to me, so I never met her. I don't know what she was like either. Aunt Nora is the only one who'd tell me anything about her, but they weren't very close. Did you want to meet her? Hector looks away. He mumbles a response, an excuse. The funny thing about Hector is how his clarity works on him too. His cowardice is transparent like glass, so much so that I can see my reflection in it, as if it wasn't there at all. He did want to meet her, but he was also scared of her. What kind of woman was she for his father to love her? More importantly, what kind of woman was her to love a man like his father? Looking at my badger's expression, I imagine what would have happened if the spider that I hid in his father's shoe had actually bit him. Would his toe have fallen off at last? Well, he's a doctor. Just as I'm about to ask Hector about it, he looks at me with eyebrows furrowed. I don't think that I want to meet her. I think I'd rather have had a mom like yours. One that he could cry for. She took me to collect berries. We did that every week in the same forest. How was that? She taught me how to grab to look for bugs. She had this big smile on her when I returned from the forest with the filled basket. I got them all on my own. And if I did good, when we returned home, she'd make me this glass of milk with berry mixed in. It was tasty. And, she'd get angry when we made our kids cry. Me and Teresa. I don't know why. They always deserved it. I wouldn't like being targeted by you two. He lied. Yes, you would. Do you think I'm stupid? I grab him by the arm and begin shaking him. Hector makes one of his pathetic expressions, but there is glee in his voice as he goes, No. When Hector is around, the world makes sense, and the question of whether I'm Cadgan or Rain stops mattering. Because whatever I am, it might be alright if he's near me. If we can keep laughing and make new smiles, then maybe I won't need to yearn for old ones anymore. Right, we just need to make something new. Hector and Iogen departed after a little bit more than a month. I had hoped that, failing to reach results, Leopoldino's patience finally reached its limit and that he'd let us go. However, my prayers would once again go unanswered. Iogen had requested some time to consult his peers about his research and promised that he'd be back in a few months to pick up where he left off. Hector cried the day that he told us about it. The other me spent all day trying to console him, watching him hug him, bring him nuts and fruits, promising to play all day with him. All of it made me bitter. I wasn't jealous of him. Hector didn't interest me as much as returning to the village, to Irnan and Teresa, and to start looking for our parents. But seeing him as a person filled me with uncertainty about my own condition. A struggle that we weren't aware of we shared, despite how obvious it is in hindsight. In any case, Iogen's departure and eventual return would repeat itself many times across the next 2 years. The other me and Hector continued getting closer, up until the point that Hector even wanted to hang out with me, mistaking me for him. I don't know what made me reluctant at first. Maybe it's because I had started seeing him as an opponent, thanks to his friendship with the other me, or perhaps it was just the fact that I hadn't held a normal conversation with anyone for months at that point. But interacting with him felt natural. I had my own sneaky ways to be mischievous, which seemed to charm him, and reading together was fun. Holding him as we fell asleep together felt right. Perhaps I was just a little jealous. As for Iogen, the nicest thing about him was that he wasn't as bad as the other doctors. He never made us strip or took strange measurements. The worst thing that he did was feed us elixirs that tasted like mud, and that would occasionally make us sick in the stomach. He was still experimenting on us while using Hector to procure our cooperation, but out of the two of us, I suppose that I'm the one that holds that against him the least. I think the first big shift in my relationship with Rain happened the day Leopoldino made us go down to join him and the guests for breakfast. God knows how he got that idea. If I had to guess, he wanted to show the guests that he didn't think less of them for being badgers, and what better way to do that than by eating alongside the savage kid? Leopoldino held generosity and compassion as virtues, but had very distorted views on both of those. In any case, Leopoldino and the other me ended up having a shouting match. Then, out of nowhere, there was a subtle change in our expression. The lion recognized it immediately, and it froze him on the spot. It was the same rage that the other me had felt upon seeing the guard attack Irnan, and that drove him to suicidal spite while holding the knife to our necks. It's hard to say what feeling the scene gave rise to in me, because all I felt was a dull pang. However, it was strong enough to bother me, to make me think about Leopoldino's hurt pride over and over. One of the nights Hector wasn't around, I lay in bed with my eyes open, repeating that scene, until I finally reached the natural conclusion. I wanted that power. The Duke had put me through so much, hurt me in so many ways. I also wanted to get back at him, but I couldn't do it, not in any way that mattered, except that the other me had figured out how. I also wanted to make him flinch in terror. A fever began filling my body then, running inside my veins. The other me, it was because of him, wasn't it? At that point, I was sure that he must have been some sort of valley creature. One that had begun acting like a wolf, or even worse, to imitate me, as if to replace me. He grieved my parents, fought the Duke and his doctors with tooth and nail in my place. However, he had taken parts of my heart. I thought even saving Irnan had been manipulated on his part. If I had my missing parts, surely I would have done the same back then. That's why he stole them. He wanted to make me feel like I needed him. That had to be it. That had to be it. That... As always, I saw him out of the corner of my eye. I got up from the bed and faced the other me. When he realized not only that I was looking at him, but the rage in my eyes, he seemed surprised. I didn't care to understand why, even though I should have. That emotion that I hadn't felt in such a long time overcame my senses and possessed me. I was so sick of that mansion. When would anyone come help? Why did I feel so strange? All of a sudden, the rage that I had inadvertently accumulated for the last year and a half crashed down on me. You! What did you do to me? He didn't respond, shrinking away from me, but no matter where he went, he could never escape from my eyes. Why can you cry when I can't? You took something from me, didn't you? You've been taking more and more from me. Right. At the start, you could barely speak and move, but then you changed so far. You became so cunning out of nowhere. It's because you've been feeding off of me. Whatever you are, go away. Irnan will know what to do once I'm out of here. He'll help me get rid of you. So go away now. Stop trying to control my body. You parasite. I grabbed the pillow and threw it at him. Of course, it phased right through him, but the other me protected himself with his hands nonetheless. No, he wasn't trying to protect himself from the pillow, but from my words of rejection. His shoulders were trembling and he stifled a sob. It made me clench my teeth. I never took anything. You gave it to me. It was a shy and sad defense, one that stood no chance against the wall of red covering my vision. Stop lying. Why the hell would I do that? When did I do it? Don't try to confuse me. Just disappear, monster. He didn't disappear, of course. If he could, I'm sure that he would have. But it was just not possible. The other me cowered as I shouted at him until my voice gave out. I don't remember when the red cleared from my vision, enough for me to realize that this wasn't going to accomplish anything and to return to bed. All I remember is him, smaller than I had ever seen him, sitting in the dark and hugging his knees, hiding his face from me. I don't understand. Why is he clenching his teeth, balling up his fists? Didn't he want me to hold onto that? Did he want it back? I hold everything he discarded, but the moment that he wants something back, he will reach to the bottom of the pond and pull it out? The me that breathes doesn't trust me, and he doesn't want me anymore. Now he stole back his power. He has no use for me. He wants to banish me alongside the blame for the hurt that he cannot undo. Is that why I came to be? To be used and discarded? I don't know how to make him listen to me, and I don't know if it's worth trying. He's not the only one like that. I was worth nothing to the townspeople, so they did not save me. All the Duke and the doctors care about is the illness. Hector is the only one who sees me. Everyone else has either left me behind or will leave me behind. Will Hector too? I don't know. I can't know. There's nowhere to go. Wherever I look, I see dead ends. All I can do is hold my breath until I drown. Hector offers me a hand. He promises he'll take me back to the world of the breathing too. But for how long? Will his fingers pull back the moment mine approach him? The me that breathes doesn't want me and doesn't trust me. When I stare into the forest for too long trying to immerse myself in the little happiness that was left over in the pain that he gave me, I feel his fingers choking the air out of me. He doesn't want me running away. When I stare into my reflection into the river, he fears that I will drown myself, and so he takes the air away, hoping to dissuade me from going forward. But lately I've been thinking maybe I should. I carry his burdens, I'm blamed for them, and I'm denied what little comfort I had been afforded. Hector's voice is the only reason that I don't. His voice is sweet as honey as he asks me what's wrong, and his big pleading eyes shine with a compassion nobody has extended to me since the priest. My doubts grow and recede like the water on the shore, but still always beckon me to return to the depths. Hector's arms pull me back, and when I wake up cuddling up to him, when we go out into the night and embrace by the river, but when he's not around it creeps back in, and I can't help but wonder when it'll be when he won't be there to hold me any longer. Thinking of what will happen then makes me shake and dig my claws into my forearms. What's the matter? Not feeling like it after all? Don't me. What's wrong? We are by the river. My thoughts rush faster than the water, but at the same time I feel drained. I'm so tired. I don't know how to answer it, or at least not in a way that doesn't terrify me, so instead I borrow that coward's words. Sometimes the Duke says something about everything having a place in nature. Do you know about that? A lot of the herbalism books that I've read talk about that. I mentioned it to you once, remember? About how for every illness there is a cure, that everything has a purpose. Is there a place for me somewhere? I'm too afraid to ask, so the words must have left on their own. There is only one answer. I can't go back. There's nowhere for me to return. and there's nowhere for me to go. Hector will have to go away one day. He'll abandon me, and yet, he... You do have a place in the world, because you are here with me, now. And I want to be here. If the people of Renai won't welcome you back, then I will. I miss you whenever I'm away. Did you know that? Everything's boring without you, and days feel like they'll never end. Every night I go to bed with a book, wishing that you were there with me, and fall asleep thinking of the next time that we'll come and visit you. We hug. It's like I'm feeling his warmth for the first time. Wide-eyed, I take it all in. I want to remember the sensation, but maybe I should not. Instead, I should wish tomorrow was like this too, and the day after, and the day after. Hold Hector, because he's mine. In him, beneath the black and white, that reminds me of my own, is my home, and he'll always have a home in me too. We'll create new smiles. We'll collect berries together. One day I will need to resume Dad's work with the silver. He'll be there to help me. That is all that I need. I want to be under the sun's embrace with you, your hand in mine. But for that to happen, something must change. This can't be going on forever. Today when I lose consciousness, when the me that breathes is about to take over, I'll throw away this face and this name that I don't need. I always wondered what the ocean was like, what it would feel like to lie face up on the water, the sun hitting my face, the wind caressing my fur, and the gentle waves rocking me back and forth. That is where I must be, I thought, floating away in the ocean, being whisked away towards some unknown location, or perhaps towards nothingness itself. The thought didn't bother me in the slightest. Perhaps I wind up back in Renai at long last, and if not, who knows? Anywhere was better than the mansion. And perhaps staying far away from the valley, somewhere the eye's influence didn't reach, was exactly what I needed to regain control over my body. No more something else stealing parts of me, trying to replace me, mocking me by acting the way that I should. So I closed my eyes and let the waves take me. A breeze blew between my ears then. The sea went perfectly still for a moment, and then it rumbled. It wasn't as if a storm was approaching, no. That was a deep rumble, as if it was coming from the depths of the earth. Ripples formed around me, moving outwards. Then the water parted, as if the ocean was trying to swallow me. But that wasn't it. Rather, a force was splitting the ocean open, trying to reach me, wrapping itself around me, before pulling me into the depths. I saw white as I descended, slowly being filled with a warmth that felt like my own, as if I was lying under the bedsheets, hugging myself. The world slowed down as I reached the bottom. The water surrounded me and became clear. I saw my own face in front of me, but I knew immediately that this was no reflection. It was him. What is this? A dream. Right, he had just lost consciousness because of the cyclical lethargy, so it must have been as he said. Only one can breathe at a time, but the other one will inevitably drag him down. We keep splashing, drowning each other, but why? I know why. What is this cyclical lethargy? Why we lost control? Because you're trying to take over my body. Didn't I tell you to disappear? No. It was you who threw those things away. Your tears, the clenching of your fists. What are you talking about? He looks at my hand. But look, you are clenching them now. When did you start doing it again? He reached down towards me, and I swatted his hand away. Before we even made contact, he got pushed away. It was because you saw me injure the Duke. He's thinner than paper. A sharp look can tear him to pieces. But even though we share eyes, yours had lost their edge. And without rage, you didn't have a blade to sharpen them anymore. I didn't throw away anything. You took it. No. That day that you began wanting it back, it doesn't matter how many butchers and 10 men he has. Those can protect him from just a glare. I gritted my teeth, wishing this being, this mockery of me, would just disappear. But slowly the meaning of his words was starting to dawn on me. The next time that I pushed his hand away, I felt something rise above the rage for an instant, but it disappeared just as quickly as it came. The other me flinched, but quickly steeled his resolve and continued. So you took your rage, the knife to kill the Duke with, back, except you tried turning the blade against me. But I know everything. I know because you made me like this. You'd never return to the village, not really. Your heart wouldn't be in it. So your hatred for all those wolves that just watched, your loneliness, your sadness, you gave everything to me. And then you resented me because with every grief that you gave me, part of your joy, what makes us. You're still afraid right now. You can't feel it, but I can. He grabbed him by the collar, and that time, I was unable to fight back at all. I was paralyzed, looking frantically for an excuse, for another explanation, but he wouldn't let me escape anymore. You want me to disappear? Fine. Then take everything back. I dare you. Go back to being a scared, lonely child. Go back to shedding tears for past that won't return. Come on, do it. I grabbed his arm, and as if to challenge him, for an instant I considered giving in to his provocations, but the instant that I felt a hint of fear from when the other wolves touched our forehead, the hatred as the villagers looked the other way, the grief from knowing that I'd never see Mom and Dad ever again, I crumbled. I couldn't do it. My chest tightened in a way that I hadn't felt in those 2 long years, and it was an emotion I rejected because deep down I knew that it'd destroy me. Even now, it was him who shook from fear, and it was in his eyes that my tears appeared. The other me lowered his gaze and let go of me. This is why I've given up on escaping? Why every time I try to remember Mom and Dad it feels so dull? So blurry? Are you saying that that's my doing? You already know the answer, as do I. Because unlike me, his memories were colorful and vivid. From where he grabbed me, a warmth spread and began painting on the canvas of my mind. Sunlight embraced the day that Dad taught me how to use the bow, the happiness that I managed to hunt my first prey, the pride in his eyes. It was only a few days later that he gave me my first real bow, wasn't it? If I could have gotten rid of the other me, just eliminated him without needing to take back any of the pain, then this also would have faded away for good. When I realized that I was made of everything that you no longer wanted, I didn't think anyone would accept me, even Irnan. I'm still afraid that he'll hate me once he realizes that I'm not who he thought. He may react like you did, treating me like a monster, trying to get rid of me. But then Hector, he's so funny. I don't know why, but he likes me. I want us to always be there for each other, so I can't disappear. But you and I, we aren't the same. We were similar yet distinct, 2 branches of the same tree, growing not yet interlocked. Since you shaped me, I guess you're the real Catgan. That's fine by me. If you want people to call you by that name, then keep it. If you want this face, then I will find my own. I won't be Catgan anymore, but we still need each other, right? So stop trying to kill me. I am cherished too. But if I am a valley creature, then what does that make you? Who gives me shape? I gritted my teeth, but I had no answer. If such a thing even existed, I didn't want to think, much less know about it. I don't have an option, do I? No. I still don't want you around. I want everything to go back to normal. You only think that because of me. I knew that now. If I had to deal with everything I had burdened him with, that hope of normalcy of going back to Renai would be extinguished in an instant. So no matter how bitter, how incomprehensible all of this was, I had no choice but to accept him. I swallowed down my rage and gave the other me a hesitant nod. Your own face, your own name. What should I call you then? He blinked, rubbing his tears from our eyes. I am Rain. So we finally get I guess you could call it the origin for Rain. And although it was a little confusing at times, it kind of feels like yeah, The original Cadgan is the one that was injected with the essence of the valley, and Rain is what came about when Cadgan, the new Cadgan, basically said like, I don't want to be feeling scared or all these emotions. I just want somebody to be there for me. And Rain came about. And so technically speaking, Rain is everything that Cadgan was. And technically he is the Cadgan that Hector was playing with. So when Rain told Hector, like, I am Cadgan, I am the one that you were playing with all that other time in the previous video, basically, or update, he wasn't lying. He was literally the Cadgan that Hector was playing. And the other Cadgan, meaning the one that's literally right next to Hector right now, the one that looks like Cadgan, it's not that he didn't have any interest in Hector, it's just that it was like, oh yeah, he's just Hector, he is our quote-unquote friend. Where Rain is, oh, this is Hector, he is my best friend, he is my everything. And how they're gonna somehow reconcile that, I don't know. Unless Rain disappears and gives everything back to Cadgan. I could kind of see that happening. Like as the end of this visual novel, they both join and become one, and it's Rain and Cadgan in the one body, but like in the one mind. They're no longer two people. This also kind of explains why Cadgan, once Hector returns, is sort of like, oh, you're back. Hey, sup, brah? And like how Rain said, like, oh, as soon as you returned, I was like, oh my god, please give me back the body, please. I want to go back to Hector. I want to be with him, and etc, etc, etc. Because Rain is the one that's attached to Hector, and Cadgan, original Cadgan, is sort of ambivalent. Which also means that when Hector and quote-unquote Cadgan were together and did the deed, it wasn't Cadgan, it was Rain. Yeah. It doesn't mean that Cadgan doesn't feel anything for Hector, it just means that what he does feel is literally inside of Rain. So any feelings that Cadgan forms for Hector do not go to him, they go to Rain. So it could still be technically said that Cadgan does love Hector. It's just that that love is personified in Rain. It could, the whole situation with those two could also be sort of like what usually happens with victims of like trauma, where they end up forming like another identity that sort of is used to protect them from the horrible things that happened. And Cadgan, the relationship with Rain and Cadgan is sort of like that. Rain is there to protect Cadgan from what happened that night and everything that subsequently happened afterwards. So like maybe this is sort of like a metaphor, analogy, or whatever you want to call it for that. I don't know. Anywho, so what are your thoughts? Write it down in the comments, and thank you all for watching / listening. If you would like to play Devil's Gambit yourself, you can do so by going down into the link in the description, which will have a direct link for the itch.io page where you can download and play the game yourself. They do have a Patreon in case you want to support the project and get earlier access to builds of Devil's Gambit or works in progress for like CGs and whatnot. They do have also a Discord in case you want to join it and, you know, talk about the visual novel. Also, I want to point out, Irnan, young Irnan, is hot. I'm just gonna say that right now. I like the young Irnan sprite when it showed up. I was like, oh wow, nice. Hot grandpa. Anyways, but yeah, so what was I saying? Oh yeah, and if you would like to support my channel, you can do so by becoming a channel member, which gives you earlier access to these videos as they're being scheduled, which is usually 2 weeks sort of in advance. You don't have to, but like, you know, in case you want to watch these videos. And considering that the next thing that you're probably gonna see if you're on public is Soul Creek, the final update, you may want to skip the wait and, you know, subscribe now. Anyways, what else? Oh, there's also Throne, not Throne, Ko-fi in case you want to support through there or can't support through channel membership. You know, you could do that. But yeah, I do have a Throne in case you're feeling overly generous. Anyways, I guess that's it for now, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.